Oh, so live in a minute. Okay. All right. Good morning, grade 7s and 8s. I'm Mrs. Thompson. I'm a Pathways and Careers teacher. Today I'm going to be talking to Ryan Casselden. He is an air ambulance pilot and he flies out of Iqaluit, Nunavut. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right. And Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about, you're a graduate of York Catholic. Can you tell us a little bit about your pathway through York Catholic, first of all?
Yes. Just like a brief summary of who I am and how I guess up to grade 8, I was born and raised in Aurora and went to St. Joe's Elementary School in Aurora, and then attended Cardinal Carter Catholic High School and graduated in 2008 before going on to university.
Okay, well, we're so glad that you're with us. So we have our first question coming up, and I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about what you do as an air ambulance pilot.
So I am based in Nunavut, and the company as a whole is responsible for transporting patients throughout the territory, as well as to other receiving facilities across Canada, just for better patient care. The plane I'm specifically on, the majority of the flying I do is from Iqaluit down south, wherever it may be, Ottawa, Montreal, Winnipeg, Toronto, just moving patients to different receiving facilities for higher levels of care.
Okay. And I guess, are you taking multiple patients at a time, or how does that work?
So we do have the capability of moving multiple patients at a time. We actually have 2 stretchers in the back of the plane, but with the coronavirus going on, just in terms of precautions, the company has made the decision to just limit it to 1 patient at a time during medevacs, with the exception of very serious circumstances.
Okay. Angelina at Sir Richard W. Scott asks, what type of medical equipment does an air ambulance have?
Thanks for that question, Angelina. I'm probably the wrong person to tell you that, because I'm up front and that's my wheelhouse up front there. One thing I can tell you is that when we transport patients, generally they are stable. So it's not going to be anything very extensive. It's going to be your general monitoring, and then maybe help administer necessary drugs, narcotics, as well as maybe some pumps to run solutions or something like that. But it's nothing too extensive.
Okay, so like a scaled down version of an emergency room, less than they would have, but more than a clinic, perhaps.
Yeah, it'd be like an ambulance. So no one's going to perform any kind of surgery or any kind of procedure in the back of an ambulance, but they're going to try to stabilize and take care of the patient as they transport them to the hospital. So it's the same kind of mentality with the plane, or not doing anything too extensive, just trying to stabilize and transport the patient.
Okay. Cameron at Our Lady of the Annunciation asks, what did you have to do to become an air ambulance pilot? And can you tell us about your educational pathway and training required? This would be after high school.
Okay, thanks, Cameron. To become a pilot or an air ambulance pilot, it's no different than the majority of other pilot requirements. Post-secondary education is not required to become a pilot, although if airlines are in your future, or a government position in transport, or many different other careers, they may look maybe be looking for candidates with post-secondary education. But in the flight training side of things, it's a flight school. It's multiple different licenses and ratings. Essentially, at the end, you have to be certified to fly on a plane with more than 1 engine, be able to fly that plane without looking at the ground, using your instruments only, flying at night. That's all incorporated into your commercial and multi-engine, what's called an IFR rating. and that's generally what most medevac companies use. And yeah, that's what is required. For myself, I went to the University of Waterloo and did a geography and aviation program. I also have my master's in science and aeronautics with a specialization in human factors. And while I was doing my University of Waterloo degree, I was also doing my flight training on the side, and I did all my training out of Waterloo there, and it just slowly worked up. And this job as an air ambulance pilot is actually my second job within my career so far.
Okay. And is there a certain number of hours that are required in the air before they'll let you fly, say the aircraft you're flying right now?
Yeah. So with none of it, it's a government contract that gets sent out, and that government contract requires the pilots, either the pilot in command or the second in command, to have a set number of hours and licenses required before they can fly that plane for the government and transport patients. So that's why the first job I had really tied into being able to fly air ambulance now. So.
Okay. All right. Isabella from St. Elizabeth Seton asks, what was the hardest part of your training?
Thanks, Isabella, for that question. So like I said, when I was at the University of Waterloo, I was completing my degree while at the same time doing my flight training. So I'd say the hardest part of it was just time management. So I was taking 4 courses per semester through Waterloo. And I also had 2 ground school courses for the flight training, as well as actual in-plane flight training. And then also, I was working 2 jobs, and then behind all that, trying to find enough time for social life and for sleep and just to calm down. So just trying to manage all that for, it was close to 3 years, trying to manage all that. That was the most difficult part of my training.
Wow. But it sounds like it set you up for what you're doing today. It was tough to go through, but I'm sure that you're glad that you persevered.
Yeah.
What made you want to become a pilot?
I always had an interest in it. My grandfather is a big he enjoys, and he's a car mechanic, and he enjoys lots of things with engines and so anything you can think of, trains, planes, automobiles. He was a big fan of it, and he would always take me around to air and space museums when I was younger. And then in grade 10, when it's really, you have to sit down and really think about your future and plan out courses for grade 11, grade 12, which are going to get you into university, which helps, get your foothold for your career. That's when I really had to sit down and think about what I wanted to do for a career and where my passions were and where my interests lied. So that's when I decided I wanted to give aviation a shot, and talking with a few people helped me narrow it down to flying airplanes, and then the rest is history. So.
Oh, wow. Well, that's okay. And one of our fellow Pathways teachers, Mrs. DiNardo, asks, why did you choose to fly air ambulances as opposed to flying commercial airplanes?
So commercial is just being able to be paid to fly a plane. So I think she's trying to get at, airliners,
Yes.
the big Air Canada, WestJet, Flair, Sunwing kind of thing. And the opportunities to fly those big planes right out of flight school are very, very few and far between. And even so, if you jump from flight school right to those spots, it's difficult to advance within the company. So this air ambulance position was originally supposed to be a stepping stone before the airlines. Unfortunately, the coronavirus happened, and career progression kind of taken a backseat. But this was supposed to be a stepping stone up to the airlines.
All right. And I mean, when you think of these times, at least you're working, whereas there are many airline pilots who are sitting at home hoping that air travel picks up soon.
Yeah, I'd call it lucky. Lucky that it just didn't happen a year later, where I may have been out of the company, but I've had many pilots that have left the company the past year, gone to the airlines, and now they're unfortunately looking for work outside the industry just to keep going until the industry recovers. So.
Okay, well, we're going to go back to elementary, high school. What subjects did you like when you were in school?
A big fan of gym. And then in high school, I was a big fan of like shop class. I really enjoyed being active and working with my hands. And that kind of led into the idea of I don't like a desk job. So I wanted something active. And one of my first pulls to go up to the Northwest Territories, which was my first job, is flying what is called off strip, which means there's no runway. So they'll just find a field and land in the field, or find a river, and if your plane has pontoons on it, land on the river, just park it on the beach, and then offload passengers or cargo. And I just like that mentality of working with my hands, something different every day, something new. So that's that kind of interest of gym and shop class from grade 7, 8, high school helped pull me to my first job in the North.
Wow. And I guess like we're encouraging students to look at those tech classes and, shop classes and that kind of thing, because it really does open things up to you. And I think it's really important hearing you say that, yeah, that's what I liked in school. And now I do this job that I think so many of the students would say, wow, that's a cool job. So, and
I feel I'm sure teachers have said this before, but the lessons they teach in those classes are they force the students to do so much more in terms of team building and thinking outside the box and being creative about projects and stuff. And that helps with jobs I was working throughout university, as well as the jobs I'm working today. So it's more than just building a pen case or playing dodgeball. It helps foster that lot more creative building.
Yeah, I think the transferable skills that you took from high school and elementary school to what you do now, those are crucial skills. And I agree with you that often those are the skills that you learn in those classes that are not just the regular English class or what you do. Okay, so we have a question now from Sophia at Light of Christ. She would like to know, what was one of your most memorable moments in your career?
Ooh. It'll be tough to narrow it down, Sophia, just to one moment. I'd say off the top of my head, I'd say the very first flight I did by myself, where I got paid to do that flight. I remember it was middle of March up north. It was still -20, not including the wind chill. And I brought a load of a couple hundred pounds of mail from one community about half an hour away to another community, just dropped off the mail and turned around and came back. And after I was putting the plane away, put it to bed, as we call it, it just kind of dawned on me that this is the first flight in potentially what is hopefully a very long and fulfilling career. So that was I'll never forget that flight for sure.
Oh, that is amazing. It's I think early in our careers we often feel like, yeah, this is me, and it really does resonate with you for a long time. Okay, what are some of the challenges in your job, and what are some of the things that you enjoy about it? So what's the good and the bad?
With my job particularly, so I work a 2-week on, 2-week off rotation. So for 2 weeks I'm up in Iqaluit, and then I have 2 weeks off back here at home, just south of Ottawa. And for the time that I am in Iqaluit, it's all on-call work. So unfortunately, there's no set schedule. When a patient gets or needs to get transported, we get a call and we get activated to go. So unfortunately, it's a mix of days and nights. You can go 2 or 3 days without a call, and then have 3 or 4 days of just nothing but calls. So just trying to manage that that kind of schedule and fatigue, risk management is probably the hardest part of the job, and the least fun component of the job. One of the things I would say that I enjoy the most about it is a quote that a fellow pilot mentor told me back in flight school, saying that you can always find some good in the job. Either you enjoy the view or you enjoy the challenge. So on the nice weather days when there's not a cloud in the sky and there's no wind and it's beautiful, you can, maintain vigilance and do your job, but you can also enjoy the view out the window and all that it can bring. And then on the poor weather days, it gives you a challenge to get from point A to point B, while outrunning a blizzard or dodging thunderstorms or, stuff like that. So it can be a challenge on the bad days, and then you can enjoy the view on the good days.
Yeah. Wow. That's, I'm picturing that sky that you're seeing. I think it's just incredible the way you describe it. All right. What advice do you have for students who are interested in a career in aviation?
So it's, right now, it can be difficult to think about aviation as a career with the current circumstance of the industry. It's not all that it's like what Hollywood and when you see on TV, it's not like that. It's lots of difficult days, long days, lots of time away from home. It's the jobs where you're back home every single day are difficult to hold on to, or not very many in the industry to begin with. So it's not as glamorous as, like I said, like Hollywood or what TV would show. But if you are interested in it, what I'd recommend doing is go for an introductory flight. So any flight school, they have intro flights, and it's just a quick 45 minutes. You go up with an instructor, they'll show you around. You get to, see what it is like to be behind the controls of a plane. So do that once or twice and see if that piques your interest. Also, flight school is very expensive. So it's better to try to determine that you want to do this before you get into it, as opposed to getting halfway through flight school and saying, no, this is too expensive, or this is really not what I want to do, and I just want to do something else. So it's important to, if you do have an interest in it, try to explore it as best you can now and throughout high school, and then set yourself up so that when you do, if aviation still is your interest, once you hit flight school, you can tackle it with all your enthusiasm and all your interest, and that will definitely make flight school go a lot smoother and be much more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just to make sure that know what you're getting into before you get close enough that you're almost there or you're halfway in.
Yeah, and also like if your parents know anyone, or if it doesn't hurt to just try to reach out and talk to other pilots, get their experience on things. I was fortunate enough that my father went to high school with a pilot, so he was able to give me some not only like information, but just personal experience about flying and flying in the north, and that will definitely help broaden your experiences and give you an insight into what the industry is actually like. And like I said, it'll add to that. Do I really want to do this, or is this really just something that's not in my wheelhouse?
Right. Make sure they don't just have that Hollywood vision of it.
Yeah. You're not, strolling down the middle of the terminal arm in arm with the flight attendants and everyone's just loving you because you're spending lots of overnights in, Saskatchewan, waking up at 4:00 in the morning to, go fly to Edmonton in the middle of the winter. So it's not all glamorous. So.
That's true. Okay, final question here. How would you say that your Catholic faith influences your work?
So I'd say most is compassion and understanding with the people we fly. When I first moved up to the Northwest Territories in 2012, and I spent 2.5 years there, and now for the past almost 6 years now, I've been flying in and out of Nunavut. The 3 territories are almost a separate country to begin with. Being born and raised in Southern Ontario is definitely a culture shock. Moving up to the Northwest Territories and even working out of Nunavut now, it's very eye-opening, the differences in life. And then even to take it a step further, doing an air ambulance, you're seeing people on their worst day when they're having to leave their communities, when they're sick, injured. So just going into it, understanding that they're in a difficult spot to begin with, and you need to put all your troubles, kind of like put them in a little box and put them away, because you're there to do a job. And I know it's unfortunate that, you know, it's early in the morning, or, you know, you'd rather be watching the Toronto Maple Leafs beat the Canadians in a hockey game right now, but you have a job to do, and these people are relying on you. And so it's just trying to first start with a understanding of where they're coming from, and then understand that you're in a first responder role, and you need to help them the best you can. And in this case, it's transporting them either to a Callet or to whatever receiving facility they need to get to.
Wow, that's I mean, what empathy. And certainly they're fortunate to have you serving them, because you really do get the circumstances they're in and the difficulties they face. So that's an amazing it's an amazing message you're giving us, Ryan. Well, this marks the end of this presentation with our guest, Ryan Casselden. Ryan, I want to thank you so much for sharing all the insight and information that you have about this fascinating job that you do.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, and grade 7s and 8s, we hope that you enjoyed the presentation, and we look forward to doing other presentations in the future. All right, bye-bye, everyone.